She knocked in the storm. Protect my children, human, an alien widow's heart-stopping plea on Cryon 7. The storm on Cryon 7 howled like a wounded beast, hurling snow against the planet's icy crust. Beneath the frozen surface, Jonas Carver sat in his bunker, a steel cocoon buried deep. At 38, his hands bore the scars of a mercenary. Engineer's life, knuckles rough from years of wrench work. The bunker's lights buzzed faintly, casting shadows over crates of scavenged tech. A heater hummed, its warmth a weak shield against the cold seeping through the walls. Jonas sipped synth coffee, its bitter heat grounding him in the silence he'd chosen. Cryon 7 was his exile, a place to forget the worlds he'd helped break. A sharp knock shattered the quiet, echoing through the bunker's hatch like a gunshot. Jonas's coffee splashed, his pulse spiking. "Nobody comes here," he growled, voice low and gravelly. He grabbed a plasma pistol, its grip icy in his hand, and flicked on the security screen. Through the storm's white haze, a figure stood, tall, silver-skinned, with delicate bone ridges curving along their jaw. Two smaller shapes huddled close, trembling. Not Nova Corp hunters, but kids? Out here? Trouble, no doubt. Jonas hesitated, his finger on the lock release. Survival demanded he keep the hatch shut. Cryon 7 didn't spare the weak, and he wasn't a savior. Yet, the smaller figures stirred something. A flicker of memory, a face he'd lost long ago. Muttering a curse, he hit the release. The hatch groaned open, and a frigid gust roared in, biting his skin. The silver-skinned figure stumbled inside, followed by the children. The woman's amber eyes, pupilless and glowing, locked onto him. Her Zenari features were striking. High cheekbones, faint bioluminescent veins pulsing under her skin. "Shelter," she said, voice sharp but frayed with desperation. "I'll fight for you. Anything, please." Jonas lowered his pistol, eyes narrowing. "One night," he snapped. "Don't test me." He pointed to a crate with rations. "Food's there. Take it and stay quiet." The boy, about 8, scanned the bunker like a cornered animal, his silver-flecked hands clenched. The girl, maybe 5, clutched a cryonite shard, its blue glow pulsing softly. Cryonite, rare, powerful, the lifeblood of this world. Jonas traded it for supplies, but its energy could power cities or weapons. Why did a kid have it? The woman, Silvara, knelt by the crate, portioning out protein bars. The boy, Kael, whispered to the girl, "Mira," his voice too low to catch. Mira's eyes darted to Jonas, curious but wary, her small fingers tracing the cryonite's edges. Jonas turned to his console, heart still racing. He'd given them shelter, not trust. But the storm wasn't letting up, and neither was his unease. He tapped the console, checking systems. The screen flickered, then froze. A low, static hum filled the air, like a comms unit choking. Jonas slammed a fist on the controls. Nothing. The signal was gone, blocked by something out there. His breath hitched. Cryon 7 was a graveyard, a place no one sought. Strangers didn't just show up, not with cryonite in hand. He glanced at Silvara, her bioluminescent veins faintly glowing as she watched her kids. The console's static grew louder, a menacing drone. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just the storm. It was hunting, and it was close. Too close. The bunker's air grew thick, heavy with the storm's relentless roar outside. Jonas Carver stood by his console, its dead screen mocking him. The static hum lingered, a low growl that set his nerves on edge. Silvara sat on the floor, her silver skin shimmering under the bunker's dim lights, her Zenari bone ridges catching faint shadows. Kyle, her son, crouched near a crate, his silver-flecked hands poking at a broken water purifier. His eyes, sharp and distrustful, flicked to Jonas. Every few seconds, Mira, the younger one, hugged her cryonite shard, its blue glow casting a soft halo around her small frame. The mineral's pulse was hypnotic, a reminder of its power, energy, control, destruction. Jonas crossed his arms, his mercenary instincts screaming to act. One night, he'd promised, but the storm trapped them here, and that blocked signal meant trouble. He needed answers. "You," he said, voice rough, pointing at Silvara. "Talk. Who's after you? And why?" Silvara met his gaze, her amber eyes steady but guarded. "My name's Silvara," she said, her tone like steel wrapped in silk. "We're Zinari, from a world your people broke. The Mind Council rules us, purges emotion for logic. My husband, a human scientist, studied cryonite. He died in an explosion. Novacorp's work." Jonas's jaw tightened. He'd built machines for Novacorp, torn apart worlds like hers. Guilt stirred, but he shoved it down. "The kids," he pressed. "Why them?" Silvara's voice softened, laced with pain. "Kyle and Mira are hybrids. The Council fears them. An old prophecy, the flame beneath the ice, says hybrids will use cryonite to spread emotion, shatter their control. They want my children dead." She glanced at Mira, who was tracing patterns on the floor, oblivious. Kyle, though, glared at Jonas, as if blaming him for their plight. Before Jonas could speak, Kyle's hands moved faster on the purifier. A soft hum filled the air. The device worked. Jonas raised an eyebrow, grudgingly impressed. "Kids, sharp," he muttered. Kyle's glare didn't waver, but he stayed silent, protective. Mira, though, giggled softly, her cryonite glowing brighter. She reached for Jonas, her small hand brushing his. A jolt hit him like a spark in his mind. His vision blurred, and he saw his sister, smiling, alive, before the raid that took her. He jerked back, heart hammering. "What was that?" he growled, voice sharp. Silvara pulled Mira close, her bioluminescent veins flaring briefly. "She doesn't mean it," she said, urgent but calm. "Cryonite amplifies her emotions, connects minds. She's different." Jonas paced, his boots thudding on the steel floor. Different was dangerous. Cryonite wasn't just fuel. It could power fleets, control thoughts, or worse. He wanted them gone, but the storm, and that static, kept him pinned. He turned to the console, desperate to restore the signal. The static grew louder, a jagged buzz that clawed at his nerves. Then a new sound, faint, rhythmic, like claws scraping ice outside the hatch. Jonas froze, his hand on the pistol. He checked the perimeter sensors, and the screen lit up with tracks. Too precise, too close. Cryo-worms didn't roam near bunkers, not unless something drove them. His eyes flicked to Silvara, then to Mira's, glowing cryonite. "You're hunters," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "They're here." The bunker's lights dimmed, and the cryonite's glow flared, casting long, trembling shadows. Something was out there, and it wasn't just after the kids. It wanted the heart of his bunker. The bunker's lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across Jonas Carver's cluttered sanctuary. Outside, Cryon 7's storm raged, its winds shrieking like a chorus of ghosts. The heater's hum faltered, a warning that the bunker's power core was failing. Jonas stood over his console, the dead screen still silent from the blocked signal. His fingers, rough from years of wrench work, gripped the edge, knuckles white. The claw-like tracks on the sensors, cryo-worms driven too close, meant hunters were near. Silvara, her silver Zainari skin glinting faintly, watched him from the corner. Her bioluminescent veins pulsed under high cheekbones, her amber eyes sharp with urgency. Kyle, her son, sat rigid, his silver-flecked hands guarding Mira, who clutched her glowing cryonite shard, its blue light trembling. Jonas cursed under his breath, voice rough as gravel. Power's dropping. If we don't fix it, we're dead. By morning, he pointed to a map on the wall, its faded lines marking an abandoned outpost a mile away. There's a spare capacitor there. We need it. Silvara rose, her bone ridges catching the light. I'll go, she said, her tone like steel, steady but taut. Kyle's head snapped up, his voice sharp. No, you can't leave us. His distrustful glare flicked to Jonas, accusing. Mira's small hand tugged at Kyle's sleeve, her whisper soft. It's okay, Kale. We'll be safe. Jonas met Kale's stare, his jaw tight. Kid, I don't like this either, but we're out of options. He grabbed a thermal cloak, its fabric heavy with frost-proof lining, and tossed another to Silvara. We move fast, in and out. Kale's fists clenched, but Mira's nod, small, trusting, silenced him. Jonas led Silvara to the hatch, the air growing colder as they neared the surface. The storm's roar seeped through, a low growl that vibrated in his chest. He checked his plasma pistol, its hum reassuring, and handed Silvara a stun baton. Stay close, he said, voice low. This world doesn't forgive mistakes. The hatch opened, and the blizzard hit like a fist, ice pellets stinging Jonas's face. Silvara followed, her silhouette sharp against the white void. The outpost lay, across a frozen ravine, its skeletal frame barely visible through the snow. They trudged forward, boots crunching on brittle ice, the wind's wail drowning their steps. Jonas's breath fogged, his thermal cloak flapping wildly. Silvara moved with a warrior's grace, her bioluminescent veins glowing faintly, a beacon in the chaos. Halfway across the ravine, a creek split the air, and the ice beneath Silvara cracked. Jonas lunged, grabbing her arm, pulling her back as the ground split open, revealing a dark chasm below. Damn it, Jonas growled, his grip tight. You trying to die out here? Silvara's eyes flashed, her voice cutting through the wind. I say we fight the hunters. You want to run. Which is it, Jonas? Her words stung, exposing their rift. He yanked her to solid ground, his chest heaving. We survive first, then we fight. Silvara nodded, but tension lingered, sharp as the cold. They reached the outpost, its rusted walls groaning under the storm's weight. Inside, Jonas pried open a panel, revealing the capacitor, its casing frosted but intact. As Silvara pocketed a cryonite fragment from the floor, a low rumble shook the ground. Cryo-worms, close, their movements too deliberate. Jonas froze, his eyes catching a faint red glow in the snow. A Zainari tracking device, blinking like a predator's eye. They know we're here, he whispered, his voice barely audible, over the storm's howl. Silvara's hand tightened on the baton, her veins flaring. The capacitor was theirs, but the hunters were closing in, and the ice beneath them groaned louder. One wrong move, and Cryon 7 would swallow them whole. The storm's roar battered Jonas Carver's bunker, a relentless siege against Cryon 7's frozen heart. Inside, the air crackled with tension, the heater's faltering hum a grim reminder of their fragile refuge. Jonas and Silvara stumbled back through the hatch, frost clinging to their thermal cloaks. The capacitor, salvaged from the outpost, weighed heavy in Jonas's pack, its metal casing cold against his spine. Silvara's silver Zainari skin shimmered faintly, her bioluminescent veins pulsing under sharp bone ridges. Her amber eyes darted. To the children, Kale, rigid with suspicion, and Mira, clutching her glowing cryonite shard, its blue light flickering like a nervous heartbeat. Jonas slammed the hatch shut, the clang echoing in the steel chamber. We've got the capacitor, he said, voice rough, catching his breath. But they're out there. Trackers, cryo-worms, the works. Kale's silver-flecked hands clenched, his glare sharp. You led them here, he accused, voice low but biting. Mira tugged his sleeve, her whisper soft. Kale, He helped Mama. Jonas ignored the boy, kneeling by the power core. The console's static buzz filled the room, a jagged drone that gnawed at his nerves. He wired the capacitor, its hum stabilizing. The lights, but the blocked signal lingered, a silent threat. Silvara crouched beside him, her stun baton still gripped tight. "That tracker," she said, her tone like a blade, steady but urgent. "The Mind Council's work. They'll find us soon." Jonas grunted, his fingers deft on the wires. "Then we'd better be ready." He pulled a cryonite fragment from his pocket, its glow casting eerie shadows. "This stuff's more than fuel," he said, voice low. "Powers cities, controls minds. Novacorp used it to break worlds." He activated a small projector, and a holographic map flared to life. Planets, scarred by Novacorp's greed, their skies choked with ash. The image flickered, cryonite's energy pulsing through the bunker's walls. Silvara's eyes widened, her veins flaring briefly. "I studied it before they exiled me," she said, her voice softening, tinged with pain. "Cryonite can heal. Minds mend trauma, but it's dangerous. Amplifies emotions, too. The council banned my work, feared it would weaken their grip." She glanced at Mira, whose cryonite shard glowed brighter, as if responding. Jonas's jaw tightened. He'd seen what Novacorp did with cryonite. Mind-controlled fleets, shattered cultures. His hands had built those machines. Guilt stirred, a cold weight in his chest. Kyle, watching from the crate, edged closer, his suspicion thawing. "You fixed the power," he said, voice grudging, almost a question. Jonas nodded, tossing him a spare tool. "You're not bad yourself, kid. Keep up." Kale's eyes narrowed, but he took the tool, a flicker of pride breaking through. Mira, emboldened, hummed a soft tune, a human melody, off-key, but warm. Jonas froze, the notes tugging at a memory of his sister, singing before the raid that took her. He cleared his throat, turning away. "Keep that quiet," he muttered, softer than intended. Silvara leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his. "You lost someone," she said, not a question, her voice like a quiet flame. Jonas's hands stilled, his breath catching. "Yeah," he said, barely audible. "Doesn't matter now." Her amber eyes held his, steady, searching. It always matters. The moment hung, fragile, until a sharp crack split the air. AEU, coded signal breaking through the static. Jonas lunged for the console, decoding it. His blood ran cold. It was Zainari, from Corinne, Silvara's sister, leading the hunters. "She wants to meet," he said, voice tight, eyes on Silvara. "Alone." Silvara Zo. Veins flared, her hand trembling. "Corinne," she whispered, hope and fear colliding. The cryonite in Mira's hands pulsed wildly, casting frantic shadows. The signal cut off, replaced by a low, rhythmic scrape, claws on ice, closer than before. Hunters, cryo-worms, or both, they were circling. Corinne's message was a lifeline, or a trap, and time was running out. The bunker's walls seemed to close in, and Jonas knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, they were in it, together. The bunker shuddered as Cryon 7's icy crust groaned under a sudden quake. Jonas Carver braced against the console, his scarred hands gripping the steel edge. The lights flickered, casting wild shadows over the cluttered space. A low rumble vibrated through the walls, like the planet itself was waking. Silvara stood near the hatch, her silver Zainari skin glinting, bioluminescent veins pulsing faintly under her sharp bone ridges. Her amber eyes, fierce yet strained, flicked to Kale and Mira. Kale, his silver-flecked hands clenched, guarded his sister, who hugged her cryonite shard, its blue glow pulsing erratically. The air crackled with fear, the storm's distant howl, now drowned by the quake's deep growl. Jonas checked the sensors, his jaw tight. Ice shift, he muttered, voice rough as gravel. If the supports crack, we're buried. Before he could move, a slab of ceiling buckled, steel groaning. As it fell, Mira screamed, her small frame frozen in its path. Jonas lunged, shoving her aside, his shoulder taking the brunt. Pain seared through him as debris pinned his leg, dust choking the air. Silvara rushed forward, her stun baton clattering to the EDU floor. "Jonas!" she cried, her voice sharp, edged with panic. Kyle, wide-eyed, scrambled to help, his earlier distrust crumbling. "Get it off him!" he shouted, voice breaking. Silvara knelt, her fingers glowing faintly as she pressed a cryonite fragment to Jonas's leg. The shard's energy dulled the pain, a warm pulse against the cold. "Hold still," she said, her tone steady but urgent, like a warrior binding wounds mid-battle. Jonas grunted, sweat beading on his brow. "Kid's got heart," he rasped, nodding at Kale, who heaved at the debris with surprising strength. Mira clung to Silvara, her cryonite flaring brighter, its light cutting through the dust. Jonas's chest tightened. Mira's scream had stirred a memory, his sister's voice before the raid that took her. He shoved it down, focusing on the boy's effort. Kale's trust, hard-won, meant something. The debris shifted, freeing Jonas. He staggered to his feet, pain throbbing but bearable. Silvara's eyes met his, a silent question lingering. "Why risk yourself?" she asked, her voice softer, almost disbelieving. Jonas shrugged, wincing. "She needed me," he said, simple but heavy. Kyle stared, his glare softening, a flicker of respect breaking through. Before they could speak, a sharp beep cut the air. The console, picking up a new signal. Jonas limped over, decoding it. His blood ran cold. "Hunters," he said, voice low. "They're here." The hatch's outer sensor flared, showing a figure approaching through the storm. Silver-skinned, Zinari, leading a squad. Corin, Silvara's sister, her bone ridges sharper, her amber eyes colder. Silvara's veins flared, her breath hitching. "Corin," she whispered, hope and dread colliding. The signal carried her voice, distorted but clear. "Surrender the hybrids, Silvara, or we burn this place down." Corin's tone was iron, but a tremor betrayed her. Guilt, perhaps, or fear. She revealed the Mind Council's threat, her son's life for the children's. "I have no choice," she said, almost pleading. Silvara's hands trembled, but her voice held firm. "You always have a choice, sister," she said, stepping toward the console. "Meet me. Alone." Jonas grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "You trust her," he growled, eyes searching hers. Silvara's amber gaze didn't waver. "I have to," she said, a quiet fire in her words. Kyle stepped forward, his voice fierce. "I'm coming too." Mira's cryonite pulsed, casting frantic shadows, as if sensing the danger. The bunker's walls creaked, the quake's aftershocks rattling crates. Outside, the storm's howl mingled with a new sound. Cryo-worms, their claws scraping closer, driven by the hunters. Corin's squad was seconds away, and her ultimatum hung like a blade. Silvara's choice could save them or doom them all. Jonas tightened his grip on his pistol, his leg throbbing, knowing one thing. Whatever came next, he wasn't letting these kids face it alone. The bunker's steel walls trembled. Cryon 7's quake, leaving a lingering hum in the air. Jonas Carver leaned against the console, his leg throbbing from the debris that had pinned him. Sweat beaded on his brow, his scarred hands gripping a plasma pistol. The lights buzzed faintly, casting jagged shadows over crates of scavenged tech. Silvara stood by the hatch, her silver Zinari skin glinting, bioluminescent veins pulsing under her sharp bone ridges. Her amber eyes burned with resolve, fixed on the sensor screen showing Corin's approaching squad. Kyle, his silver-flecked hands clenched, stood protectively near Mira, whose cryonite shard glowed erratically, its blue light flickering like a warning pulse. Silvara's voice cut through the tension, steady but fierce. "I'm meeting her," she said, her tone like a blade tempered by hope. "Corin's my sister. She'll listen." Jonas's jaw tightened, his gruff voice sharp. "You're betting our lives on that? She's their hunter." He pointed to the screen where Corin's silhouette moved through the storm, her squad's red trackers blinking like predators' eyes. Silvara's veins flared, her hands trembling. "She's family," she said, quieter, almost pleading. Cale stepped forward, his voice raw. "I'm going with you. I won't let you go alone." Mira's small hand clutched Silvara's, her whisper soft. "Be careful, Mama." Jonas grabbed Silvara's arm, his grip firm but not cruel. "If it's a trap, we're done," he growled, eyes searching hers. Silvara met his gaze, unflinching. "Then help me make sure it's not," she said, a quiet fire in her words. Jonas hesitated, then nodded, releasing her. "Kyle stays. I need him here." Kyle's glare burned, but Jonas tossed him a comms unit. "Rig it for static burst, kid. Slow them down." Kale caught it, his suspicion easing, a flicker of purpose in his eyes. Silvara slipped into the storm, the hatches groan swallowed by the wind's howl. She moved through a cryo-worm tunnel, its icy walls shimmering with faint cryonite veins, their glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The air was sharp, biting her lungs, but she pressed on, her stun baton ready. Corin waited at the tunnel's end, her silver skin darker, her bone ridges more pronounced, her amber eyes, cold but fractured, locked onto Silvara. "You shouldn't have come," Corin said, her voice like frost, cracking under strain. "The E.T. Mind Council has my son. If I fail, he dies." Silvara's heart clenched, her veins flaring. "You hid me once, when I loved a human," she said, stepping closer. "Choose us now, sister." Corin's hands shook, her baton lowering. "I can't," she whispered, voice breaking. "They'll break him." A memory flashed, Corin braiding Silvara's hair as children, laughing under Zenari stars. Silvara reached out, her hand steady. "We'll save him together," she said, voice fierce. Corin's eyes flickered, hope warring with duty. Back in the bunker, Jonas and Cale worked fast, rigging the comms for a burst. Mira hummed softly, her cryonite flaring, and a sudden jolt hit Jonas, a vision of Silvara's pain, her hope for Corin. He staggered, cursing. "Kid, your sister's doing it again," he muttered. Mira's eyes widened, apologetic. Before Jonas could react, the console screamed, a proximity alert. The hatch shuddered, and a deafening blast rocked the bunker, steel screeching as the outer lock buckled. Corin's squad wasn't waiting. Jonas grabbed his pistol, his legs screaming with pain. "Cale, get Mira back!" he barked, voice like thunder. Cale pulled Mira behind a crate, his hands shaking but steady. The cryonite in Mira's grip blazed, its light flooding the bunker, casting wild shadows. Outside, Silvara faced Corin, unaware of the attack. The tunnel's icy walls trembled, cryo-worms stirring below, their claws scraping louder. Corin's choice hung in the balance, family or duty, and the hunters were closing in. One wrong move, and the bunker would become their tomb. The bunker's walls screamed as a blast tore through the outer hatch, steel buckling like crumpled foil. Jonas Carver staggered, his injured leg burning, plasma pistol hot in his scarred hands. Cryon 7's icy air roared in, stinging his face, the storm's howl mingling with the screech of metal. The lights flickered wildly, casting jagged shadows over scattered crates. Kyle, his silver-flecked Zenari skin tense, shoved Mira behind a steel bench, her cryonite shard blazing blue, its glow pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Outside, in a cryo-worm tunnel, Silvara faced her sister Corin, unaware of the attack. Their voices drowned by the chaos. Jonas's voice thundered, rough as gravel. "Kyle, keep her safe!" He limped to the console, sensors screaming. 6 Zenari hunters, their red trackers closing in. Kyle's amber eyes flashed, his hands gripping a makeshift stun rod. "I can fight!" he snapped, voice fierce, no longer the wary boy. Jonas nodded, tossing him a power cell. "Then make it count, kid." Mira's small frame trembled, her hum faltering, but her cryonite's light flared, casting eerie reflections on the walls. Jonas's chest tightened. Her fear echoed his. Sisters, long gone, but he shoved the memory down. In the tunnel, Silvara's silver skin shimmered, her bioluminescent veins glowing under sharp bone ridges. "Corinne, choose us," she pleaded, her voice a steady flame against the storm's wail. Corinne's colder amber eyes wavered, her baton shaking. "My son," she whispered, voice cracking, torn by the Mind Council's threat. The tunnels, icy walls pulsed with cryonite veins, their hum vibrating in Silvara's bones. A distant explosion echoed, the bunker's breach. Silvara's heart lurched. "They're attacking!" she cried, grabbing Corinne's arm. "Help me save them!" Inside, Jonas fired at the hatch, plasma bolts sizzling against Zenari shields. The hunters advanced, their silver armor glinting, bone ridges stark under glowing veins. Kyle activated. His stun rod, its crackle sharp, disabling one hunter's shield. "Got you!" he shouted, a spark of pride in his voice. Jonas grunted, impressed, but the hunters pressed closer, their batons humming with lethal charge. The bunker's floor shook, cryo-worms stirring below, their claws scraping like knives on ice. Silvara burst through the hatch, Corin behind her, their silver forms a blur. Silvara's voice cut through the chaos, fierce and commanding. "Jonas, fall back!" She hurled a cryonite-charged grenade, its pulse scattering the hunters. Corin hesitated, then fired her baton, stunning her own squad's leader. Her amber eyes met Silvara's, a silent vow. "For you," she said, voice raw, choosing family over duty. Jonas limped to Silvara's side, their shoulders brushing, a fleeting warmth in the cold. "Nice timing," he rasped, his gruff tone hiding relief. Silvara's veins flared, her gaze steady. "We're not done yet." Mira's cryonite blazed brighter, and a sudden jolt hit the room, a wave of her fear and love, amplified by the shard. Jonas staggered, seeing flashes of his sister's smile. Corin froze, her breath hitching, memories of Silvara's childhood flooding her mind. The hunters faltered, disoriented by the emotional surge. Kale seized the moment, tossing a rigged comms unit, its static burst frying their trackers. The bunker's walls groaned, the quake's aftershocks intensifying, and a new hum rose, deep, resonant, from the cryonite core deep below. Jonas's eyes widened, the console flashing red. "The core's unstable," he barked, voice tight. "It's gonna blow if we don't cool it." Silvara's hand gripped his, her amber eyes fierce. "I know how," she said, her tone like steel forged in fire. The hunters regrouped, their batons charging, and cryo-worms roared beneath, drawn by the core's pulse. Corinne stood with Silvara, ready to fight. But the core's hum grew louder, a ticking bomb. One wrong move, and Cryon 7 would bury them all in ice and fire. The bunker's core chamber glowed with an eerie blue, the cryonite core pulsing like a dying star. Jonas Carver braced against a crate, his legs screaming from the earlier collapse, plasma pistol still warm in his scarred hands. The air thrummed, with energy, sharp and electric, as the core's hum grew deafening, a warning of imminent collapse. Silvara stood at the core's edge, her silver Zinari skin shimmering, bioluminescent veins flaring under sharp bone ridges. Corin, her sister, guarded the chamber's entrance, her amber eyes fierce but haunted, baton crackling with charge. Kyle, silver-flecked and determined, crouched near Mira, whose cryonite shard blazed, its light flooding the room with frantic shadows. Outside, cryoworms roared, their claws scraping closer, drawn by the core's unstable pulse. Jonas's voice cut through the hum, rough and urgent. "Silvara, talk to me. How do we stop this?" His eyes locked on the core, its glow searing. His vision. Silvara's hands trembled, her amber gaze steady but strained. "Cryonite's energy can be cooled," she said, her tone like steel tempered by fear. "But it needs a mind to channel it." "Mine." Jonas's heart sank, his grip tightening. "That'll kill you," he growled, stepping closer, pain shooting through his leg. "Find another way." Silvara's veins flared, her voice soft but resolute. "There is no other way, Jonas. Not if we want to live." Corin's baton sparked, her voice raw. "Silvara, no," she cried, her silver frame tense, torn by her recent defection. "I just got you back." Kale's amber eyes widened, his voice breaking. "Mama, don't!" Mira's small hand clutched her shard, her hum faltering, tears glinting in the blue light. Silvara knelt, touching Kyle's cheek, then Mira's. "You're my strength," she whispered, her tone a quiet flame. She rose, facing Jonas. "Help me stabilize it. You're the engineer." Jonas cursed, limping to the console, his fingers flying over controls. "Rigging a dampener," he muttered, voice tight, pulling wires and a spare capacitor. The core's hum spiked, the chamber shaking, dust cascading from the ceiling. Silvara pressed her hands to the core, its energy surging through her, her veins glowing blindingly bright. Jonas's breath caught. A vision hit him. Silvara's memories of her human husband, laughing under Zinari stars. He shook it off, shouting, "Silvara, slow it down! You're burning out!" Her amber eyes met his, fierce, unwavering. "Keep going," she said, voice strained, like a warrior facing the void. Corin fired at the entrance, stunning a hunter who breached the gap. Her batons crackled sharp. "They're coming!" she yelled, her voice thick with desperation. Kale dragged Mira back, his stun rod humming, ready to fight. The core's glow pulsed wildly, the hum now a piercing wail. Silvara's body shook, her silver skin paling, but she channeled the energy, cooling the core's core. Jonas's dampener clicked into place, its buzz syncing with the core's pulse. The chamber steadied, the wail fading to a low hum. Silvara collapsed, her breath shallow, veins dimming. Jonas caught her, his arms trembling, heart pounding. "Stay with me," he rasped, voice raw, cradling her against the cold steel floor. Corin dropped to her knees, tears streaking her silver face. "Silvara, please," she whispered, her baton clattering. Mira's cryonite flared, its light soft now like a lullaby. Kale's voice shook, fierce but small. "Mama, wake up!" The hunter's footsteps echoed closer, their batons charging, and cryo-worms roared below, their claws a relentless drum. Jonas's eyes flicked to Mira's shard, its glow steadying, as if answering her fear. "Kid," he said, voice low, urgent, "can you do that mind thing again?" The core hummed softly, stable but fragile, and the hunters were seconds away. Silvara's life hung by a thread, and Cryon 7's ice was closing in. One spark, one chance, could save them, or end them all. The bunker's core chamber hummed softly, the cryonite core now stable, its blue glow a gentle pulse. Jonas Carver knelt beside Silvara, his scarred hands steadying her frail form, her silver Zinari skin pale, bioluminescent veins barely flickering. Her breath was shallow, but her amber eyes fluttered open, stirred by Mira's cryonite shard, its light soft like a whispered lullaby. Corin, her silver face streaked with tears, gripped Silvara's hand, her sharp bone ridges catching the dim light. Kyle, his silver-flecked hands trembling, stood protectively near Mira, whose small frame glowed with relief, her shard casting warm shadows across the steel floor. Outside, Cryon 7's storm had faded, leaving an eerie silence, the ice glittering. Under a faint dawn, Jonas's voice, rough but soft, broke the quiet. "You scared us, Silvara," he said, his gruff tone masking a deeper fear. Silvara's lips curved faintly, her voice weak but steady. "Couldn't leave my family," she said, her amber gaze meeting his, a spark of fire still burning. Corin's voice cracked, raw with guilt. "I almost lost you," she whispered, her baton discarded, a symbol of her defiance against the Mind Council. Kale's amber eyes softened, his voice small but fierce. "You're okay, Mama." Mira, clutching her shard, giggled softly, her hum returning, a melody of hope. The chamber's air warmed as the bunker's system stabilized, the heater's hum steadying. Jonas helped Silvera sit, his legs still throbbing from the quake. He glanced at the console, its sensors clear. No hunters, no cryo-worms, their roars silenced by the core's calm. "We need to move," he said, voice firm. "This place won't hold forever." Silvara nodded, her veins glowing faintly. "We'll build something new," she said, her tone like a vow, fierce and unbroken. They emerged from the bunker, stepping onto Cryon 7's surface, where the ice sparkled with bioluminescent moss, its green glow weaving through cracks, fed by melting streams. Jonas led the group to a sheltered ridge, where Kyle rigged a comms array from scavenged parts, his hands deft, pride in his amber eyes. Silvara and Corin programmed a signal, broadcasting a message of peace to the stars. "To anyone who's lost," Silvara said, her voice clear, recorded into the array. "Cryon 7 is home." Mira planted a moss sprig, its glow pulsing like her cryonite, and looked up at Jonas, her voice tiny but bold. "Dad, is this ours now?" Jonas froze, his chest tightening, memories of his sister flooding back. He ruffled her hair, voice gruff. "Yeah, kid, it's ours." Corin's amber eyes scanned the horizon, her voice steady but cautious. "The Mind Council won't stop," she said, her hand brushing Silvera's. "I'll rally the lower tribes, fight back." Jonas nodded, his pistol holstered but ready. The group worked together, their breaths fogging in the crisp air, the moss spreading under their feet, a symbol of life reclaimed. But a shadow lingered. A Clithian refugee, Jackson, watched from the ridge's edge, his angular face tense, his cybernetic arm glinting. His voice, low and guarded, broke the calm. "You trust too easily, human," he said to Jonas, his tone sharp, hinting at secrets. The comms array crackled, a faint signal breaking through, a response from deep space. Jonas's hand hovered over the console, his pulse quickening. "Incoming ship," he said, voice tight, eyes on Silvara. Her veins flared, hope and fear colliding. "Friends or foes?" she asked, her tone like steel, ready for either. Kale's hands paused, his amber eyes wide, while Mira's cryonite pulsed, casting nervous shadows on the ice. The signals hum grew louder, a distant roar echoing from the sky. Cryon 7's new dawn was fragile, and whatever was coming could forge their future, or shatter it. Cryon 7's dawn painted the ice with streaks of green, its moss glowing under a pale sky. Jonas Carver stood on the ridge, his scarred hands adjusting the comms array, its faint hum cutting through the crisp air. Silvara, her silver zinery, skin shimmering, checked the signal's range, her bioluminescent veins pulsing softly. Corinne scouted the horizon, her sharp bone ridges glinting, amber eyes wary. Kael, silver-flecked and focused, wired a power cell, while Mira planted moss, her cryonite shard casting a gentle blue glow. The ship's signal grew louder, a distant rumble vibrating the ice, promising hope or danger. Jonas wiped sweat from his brow, his legs still aching. "Signal's strong," he said, voice gruff but steady. "They'll be here soon." Silvara's amber eyes met his, fierce with purpose. "We're ready," she said, her tone like a vow, tempered by warmth. Kyle glanced up, his voice small, but proud. "I made it better," he said, tapping the array. Mira giggled, her hum soft, the moss thriving under her touch. Corinne's baton rested at her side, her voice low. "The Mind Council won't let this stand," she warned, her silver frame tense. The ridge buzzed with activity as a ship broke the clouds, a patchwork vessel carrying Clithian refugees, their cybernetic limbs glinting. Jonas lowered his pistol, relief flickering. "Told you, friends," he muttered, glancing at Silvara. The Clithians landed, led by Jackson, his angular face hard, cybernetic arm whirring softly. "We seek sanctuary," he said, voice clipped, eyes darting to the array. Silvara stepped forward, her veins glowing. "You're welcome here," she said, her tone open but firm. The Clithians unloaded supplies, their collective hum blending with the moss's faint pulse, but tension simmered. Jackson lingered by the array, his fingers brushing a hidden comms device. Kyle, wiring nearby, noticed a faint signal spike, his amber eyes narrowing. "Jonas," he whispered, voice sharp. "Something's wrong." Jonas crouched beside him, checking the array. A coded transmission, encrypted, sent to the Mind Council. His blood ran cold. "Jackson," he growled, standing, pistol drawn. The Clithian froze, his cybernetic arm twitching. "You don't understand," Jackson said, voice low, desperate. "They have my sister. I had no choice." Silvara's veins flared, her voice like steel. "You betrayed us," she said, stepping closer, baton raised. Jackson's eyes darted, his arm whirring, but Silvara's amber gaze held him. "I was like you, Jackson," she said, softer, her tone a quiet flame. "The council took my husband. But we choose family." Jackson's shoulders sagged, his comms device clattering to the ice. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice breaking. Corinne's hand tightened on her baton, her voice cold. "We can't trust him," she said, glancing at Silvara. The comms array crackled, a new signal cutting through, a Mind Council warning. "Surrender the core, or Cryon 7 burns," it hissed, distorted and menacing. Jonas's pulse raced, his gruff voice sharp. "They're coming," he said, eyes on Silvara. Kale's hands shook, but he stood tall, his voice fierce. "We'll fight," he said, clutching a stun rod. Mira's cryonite pulsed, casting nervous shadows, her hum faltering. The moss glowed brighter, as if sensing the threat, while cryo-worms stirred below, their distant roars echoing. Jonas grabbed Jackson's arm, his grip firm. "You're with us now," he growled, voice like thunder. "Prove it." Jackson nodded, his cybernetic arm steadying, guilt etched on his face. Silvara's amber eyes scanned the group, her voice rallying. "We've built a home," she said, fierce and unbroken. "We'll defend it." The ship's rumble faded, but a new sound rose, a faint hum from the sky, growing louder. The Mind Council's hunters were closing in, and Cryon 7's fragile peace hung by a thread. Cryon 7's ice gleamed under a pale sun, its moss weaving vibrant green veins across the frozen plain. Jonas Carver stood on the ridge, his scarred hands steadying the comms array, its hum a steady pulse in the crisp air. Silvara, her silver, Zenari's skin glowing faintly, adjusted the signal, her bioluminescent veins pulsing under sharp bone ridges. Corin patrolled nearby, her amber eyes scanning the horizon, baton at her side. Kyle, silver-flecked and focused, wired a defense grid, while Mira tended the R-moss, her cryonite shard casting a soft blue glow. The Mind Council's threat echoed in their minds, a shadow over their fragile sanctuary. Jonas's gruff voice broke the quiet. "Arrays holding," he said, wiping frost from his brow. "They'll hear us." Silvara's amber eyes met his, fierce with hope. "Good," she said, her tone like a flame, steady and warm. "We're not alone anymore." Kale's hands paused, his voice proud. "Grid's up," he said, amber eyes glinting. Mira's hum filled the air, her cryonite pulsing in rhythm with the moss's glow. Corin's silver frame tensed, her voice low. "The Council's hunters are close," she warned, gripping her baton. "We need allies. Fast." A low rumble shook the ice, and Jonas's pulse quickened. The Clithian ship stood nearby, its patchwork hull glinting, housing refugees who'd joined their cause. Jackson, the Clithian, worked alongside Kale, his cybernetic, arm whirring, guilt still etched on his angular face. "I've got your back," he said to Kyle, voice clipped but earnest, redeeming his betrayal. Jonas nodded, his pistol holstered but ready. Silvara gathered the group, her silver skin shimmering. "We use cryonite to heal," she said, her tone rallying. "Not to control, like the Council. That's our strength." They activated the core, its blue glow surging through buried cryonite veins, awakening a swarm of cryo-worms. The creatures, their scales glinting like ice, burrowed to the surface, their hums syncing with the moss's pulse. Silvara's amber eyes widened, her voice awed. "They're protecting us," she said, touching a worm's flank, its energy resonating with her own. The worms formed a perimeter, their claws scraping softly, a living shield. Kyle's defense grid crackled, stunning a lone Council scout who ventured too close, its armor sizzling in the frost. Corin's comms unit buzzed, a message from the Zenari lower tribes. "They're rising up," she said, her voice thick with pride. "They'll join us." Jonas's chest swelled, his gruff tone softening. "We're building something real," he said, glancing at Silvara. She smiled, her hand brushing his, a fleeting warmth. The Clythians, their cybernetic limbs humming, shared rations, their collective chants blending with Mira's hum. The EIR moss spread, its glow brighter, a symbol of life taking root. But Jackson's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. "Council's building a mind weapon," he said, his cybernetic arm tense. "Cryonite-powered, to enslave entire worlds." Jonas's jaw tightened, his hand on his pistol. "They'll hit us first," he growled, eyes on Silvara. Kale's amber eyes flared, his voice fierce. "Let them try," he said, gripping his stun rod. Mira's cryonite pulsed, casting nervous shadows, her hum faltering. The comms array crackled, a new signal breaking through. A Zenari ship, its silhouette looming in the sky. Silvara's veins flared, her voice steady. "Friend or foe?" she asked, her tone like steel, ready for either. Corinne's baton sparked, her amber eyes narrow. "We'll know soon," she said, stepping forward. The ship's hum grew louder, its shadow darkening the ice. Jonas grabbed Silvara's hand, his gruff voice low. "Whatever comes, we face it together," he said, his scarred face resolute. The R-moss glowed defiantly, and the cryo-worms roared, their claws a steady drum. Cryon 7's alliance was forming, but the Council's shadow loomed, and the sky held their fate. Cryon 7's ice shimmered under a faint sun, its moss glowing vibrant green, weaving life into the frozen plain. Jonas Carver stood on the ridge, his scarred hands gripping the comms array, its steady hum vibrating in the crisp air. Silvara, her silver Zenari skin radiant, monitored the signal, her bioluminescent veins pulsing under sharp bone ridges. Corinne, baton in hand, watched the sky, her amber eyes fierce. Kael, silver-flecked and deft, fine-tuned the defense grid, while Mira knelt by the moss, her cryonite shard casting a soft blue glow. The Zenari ship loomed above, its sleek hull casting a shadow over their sanctuary. Jonas's gruff voice cut through the tension. "Signal's clear," he said, eyes on the ship. "Let's hear them out." Silvara's amber gaze met his, steady with hope. "They could be allies," she said, her tone like a flame, warm yet firm. The ship descended, its thrusters humming softly, and a Zenari stepped out. Varen, a rebel leader, her silver skin marked with battle scars, her bone ridges worn. "We fight the Mind Council," Varen said, voice like steel, her amber eyes scanning the group. "Join us, and we end their reign." Corinne's veins flared, her voice proud. "The lower tribes are ready," she said, stepping forward. "We stand with you." Jonas nodded, his pistol holstered but close. "What's the plan?" he asked, his gruff tone pragmatic. Varen's gaze hardened. "The Council's mind weapon is nearly complete," she said, her voice low. "We strike their outpost. Destroy it." Silvara's hand brushed Jonas's, her tone resolute. "We'll use cryonite to unite, not enslave," she said, her amber eyes fierce. The Clithians, led by Jackson, nodded, their cybernetic limbs whirring, their chants blending with Mira's soft hum. The Alliance moved fast, cryo-worms patrolling the ice, their scales glinting, their roars a steady drum. Kael's grid crackled, repelling a Council scout ship, its wreckage smoking on the plain. Silvara and Jonas rigged cryonite amplifiers, their glow linking minds, forging trust among Zinari, Clethians, and humans. "This is home," Silvara said, her voice rallying as the moss spread underfoot. Jonas's chest swelled, his gruff voice soft. "Damn right," he said, his scarred hand squeezing hers, a silent vow. But a new signal broke through, sharp and cold. A Council attack, their ships dotting the sky. Jonas's pulse raced, his voice thunderous. "They're here!" he barked, grabbing his pistol. Silvara's baton sparked, her amber eyes blazing. "Worms! Now!" she shouted, her voice like a beacon. The cryo-worms surged, their claws tearing through ice, scattering the Council's drones. Corin and Varen fought side by side, their batons crackling, while Jackson's cybernetic arm fired pulses, his voice fierce. "For Cryon 7!" he yelled, redemption in his eyes. The battle raged, moss glowing defiantly, cryonite amplifiers pulsing with shared hope. The Council's ships retreated, their mind weapons stalled, but a deeper hum shook the ice. Novacorp's fleet, their massive hulls darkening the sky. Jonas's jaw tightened, his gruff voice low. "They want the core," he said, eyes on Silvara. Varen's voice cut in, sharp. "They'll trade peace for cryonite access," she said, her tone wary. Silvara's veins flared, her voice steady. "We offer cooperation, not control," she said, her tone unbreakable. Jonas stepped forward, his scarred face resolute. "I'll limit the core's output," he said, voice heavy. "No weapons, just healing." The sacrifice stung. His engineer's skill, bound to cryonite, would fade. Silvara's hand gripped his, her amber eyes soft. Together, she whispered, her tone a quiet flame. The Novacorp fleet paused, their signal shifting. Agreement, for now. But a faint hum lingered in the sky, a new threat stirring. Cryon 7's alliance stood strong, but the stars held secrets, and peace came at a cost. Cryon 7's ice sparkled under a golden dawn, its armos weaving emerald threads across the frozen plain. Jonas Carver stood on the ridge, his scarred hands resting on a newly built comms tower, its gentle hum blending with the crisp air. Silvara, her silver Zainari skin radiant, tended a cryonite amplifier, her bioluminescent veins glowing softly under sharp bone ridges. Corin, now a leader among the Zainari rebels, organized Cleithian builders, her amber eyes bright with purpose. Kael, silver-flecked and confident, wired a healing station, while Mira danced through the moss, her cryonite shard casting a warm blue glow. Cryon 7 was no longer a wasteland, it was home. Jonas's gruff voice carried over the hum. Cores. Locked down, he said, his tone heavy but resolute. No more weapons. He'd sacrificed his cryonite expertise, limiting the core to healing, securing Novacorp's uneasy peace. Silvara's amber eyes met his, her smile soft. You gave us a future, she said, her tone like a flame, steady and warm. Her hand found his, their fingers entwining, a quiet vow sealed in the dawn's light. Corinne's voice rang out, proud and clear. The Mind Council's gone, she said, her silver frame tall. The tribes are free. The plain buzzed with life. Cleithians, their cybernetic limbs whirring, raised shelters, their chants harmonizing with Mira's hum. Jackson, his angular face softened, taught Kyle to calibrate amplifiers, his voice steady. You're a natural. Kid, he said, redemption in his eyes. Kale's amber eyes glinted, his voice bold. We're building something big, he said, a grin breaking through. Mira knelt by the moss, her cryonite pulsing, and whispered, It's happy, her giggle echoing like hope itself. Cryo-worms patrolled the ice, their scales glinting, their soft roars a guardian's song. Jonas surveyed the settlement, his chest swelling. Never thought I'd call this place home, he muttered, his gruff tone warm. Silvara leaned against him, her silver skin cool against his arm. We chose each other, she said, her voice a quiet spark, igniting his resolve. The healing station glowed, its cryonite energy mending trauma for Zenari and Cleithians alike, a beacon of their alliance. The Armos spread, its emerald glow pulsing with Cryon 7's heartbeat, a testament to life reclaimed. But a faint crackle broke the calm. The comms tower, picking up a distant signal. Jonas's pulse quickened, his hand tightening on Silvara's. Another ship, he said, voice low, eyes on the console. Corinne's baton sparked, her amber eyes narrowing. Not Novacorp, she said, her tone cautious. Something new. Kyle's hands paused, his voice sharp. Are they friends? He asked, gripping a stun rod. Mira's cryonite pulsed, casting curious shadows, her hum steady but alert. The signal clarified, a voice speaking in an unknown tongue, promising alliance or warning. Silvara's veins flared, her voice resolute. We've faced worse, she said, her tone like steel forged in fire. We'll face this. Jonas nodded, his scarred face set, his gruff voice firm. Together, he said, his hand still in hers, a vow unbroken. The Cleithians and Zenari gathered, their faces lit by the moss's glow, ready for what came next. The worms roared softly, their claws scraping the ice, guardians of a new dawn. The signal's hum grew louder, a mystery from the stars, hinting at a cryonite-rich world under a shadow's control. Cryon 7 stood as a beacon, its alliance forged in sacrifice, its people bound by hope. Jonas looked at Silvara, then at Kael and Mira, his family now. The flame beneath the ice burned bright, but the stars whispered of new trials. Whatever came, they would meet it as one, their light unyielding.